Guess who's back? Back again. Roaring Kitty's back. Tell a friend. That's right. The savior of the people, the protector of retail investors, and the guy who made GameStop go to the moon and took Wall Street down at the same time. He's back. He's come out of the woodworks a few years after being offline. And what happened? Oh, baby, did the markets go crazy? Both the stock markets and the meme coin markets. We're going to tell you all about that and so much more in today's show. GM, what Milk Road Radio, the easiest path to get smarter about crypto. I'm Jay Hamilton, joined by my co-host Kyle Reedhead, and we believe that on-chain is the next online. This is the opportunity, and we're here to help you capitalize.
Crypto will go up more than 100x in both users and value over the next decade. If you're listening to this right now, you're extremely early and have an incredible opportunity to capitalize. At Milk Road, our mission is to make you smarter about crypto. That's why we're doing today's podcast and why we send you a daily newsletter for free. But if you're ready to level up as an investor, then let me tell you about Milk Road Pro. We crafted this resource for investors who are already smart enough about crypto and are looking for more actionable insights on how to invest successfully in one of the fastest growing industries on earth. Every week, we break down the latest trends, dive into tokenomics of popular and up and coming tokens, and get into the nitty gritty of market analysis, all to help you invest smarter. Plus, we have a private Discord community for pro members. It's like your backstage pass to the Milk Road crew, exclusive insights, hot tips, and live AMAs with our team. Now, if you're looking to level up as an investor, then click the link in the show notes below and sign up to Pro today. Don't let this bull market opportunity slip through your fingers.
Jay, it's going to be a good episode. We've got a lot to talk about, not just memes, although obviously GameStop and memes is going to be a big one here. But blockchain gaming is also here. It's just not how most people think. We'll cover what we're talking about there. We've also got some news on who bought all these Bitcoin ETFs. We've been covering this for forever. Now we know just who are the institutions that are buying, or is it retail? It's a good one. I'm excited about this one. Macro is heating up. We've got some CPI numbers. We'll discuss what all this means and what it means for your bags. And we've just got so much more. So it's going to be a good episode. I'm excited for today. I'm very excited. This is going to be a good one. Let's start as we always do with the market watch, starting with Bitcoin. Kai, what's going on with Bitcoin this past week? Yeah, so Bitcoin is up 7.6% on the week. This basically all happened, was it yesterday, I guess, with some of the CPI numbers, which we'll talk about, but it's currently sitting at 65,800. We're back, or maybe we'll talk about it. And what was exciting to see out of Bitcoin this week was, as you mentioned, a lot of major institutions and pension funds buying. First, we had the state of Wisconsin release that they bought $100 million worth of Bitcoin ETFs. And Eric Botunis gave a great take here, talking about how it's pretty unusual to see state pension funds purchasing this type of risk asset this early. Nobody anticipated this coming in Q1, right when the ETF was announced and released. Normally, usually need to get some like clarity and some regulatory clarity and like approvals. And I guess they were just real quick to make this happen. So kudos to Wisconsin. They're quick. Wisconsin. Don't think I ever thought Wisconsin would be the leader here. Well, isn't Wisconsin doing a lot for like Bitcoin regulation? I feel like they're the one state doing that. I don't know for sure because obviously I'm not in the US, but I'm pretty sure they're the ones that are doing it. But maybe I'm missing something. Yeah, you might be right. You know, Wisconsin, they're kind of like Canada, so I got a lot of love for them. And then, look, Michael Saylor jumped into the conversation here and pointed out that there are thousands of pension funds in the U.S. which manage $27 trillion in assets. So they all going to be getting some of this milk. That is for sure. They'll be coming, the endowments as well from universities. There's a lot of money out there that hasn't made their way, and yet that will take time. Jay's going to list off a bunch that bought. And by the way, they didn't just buy. This 100 million didn't just get put in like today. This is over Q1. So since the ETFs have launched, all these big institutions are now, basically they have to do their filings. And so we're able to finally see who has bought this stuff. It's funny, when you're on chain, you can see it live. When you're in the TradFi world, which is what these ETFs are, you got to wait for the earnings reports, which is super annoying. But who else is buying, Jay? Yeah, we got a long list here, starting with Millennium, which is a management fund, bought $2 billion
in Bitcoin across 4 different ETFs. We got JP Morgan Chase, second largest bank in America. We got Wells Fargo, third largest bank in America. We got a couple Canadian banks in here, Bank of Montreal, CIBC, a long list of hedge funds. I'm not even going to list. UBS Group AG, Switzerland's largest bank, got in on the party, and the list goes on. Super exciting to see.
Interesting. There was over 500 holders of these ETFs, which is 200 times the average for any new ETF. So it just blew the record for ETFs. So pretty wild to have this many big institutions already buying and holding this thing. And we're just getting started.
Let's go from Bitcoin's glory to ETH's sadness these days. Kai, what's going on in ETH this past week?
Yeah, ETH is actually down 0.63% on the week, sitting at 2,956. A lot of the gas is the wrong term to use because you're going to think I mean transactions. I just mean a lot of the like hype and excitement from Ethereum is really getting pushed out. I mean, with the ETF, next week is actually when we are going to hear the news around the approval, but it's not looking too good. And so I think a lot of people are getting a little bit bored of this ETH asset.
How many times have you thought in your head, this is the last time we're going to see ETH below 3,000?
I think about it all the time. It's crazy that it's this low.
It's crazy. It's totally crazy. I feel like every time it goes below 3,000, I'm like, this has got to be the last time. And here we are again, just below 3,000, just a little bit. Kai, another chart that was shared a lot this week was the ETH BTC ratio weekly close, all-time lows since back in April 2021.
Yeah, the ETH BTC chart's getting beat up. Not what was expected. At least I didn't expect this. And I think most people weren't really expecting this. However, like looking back, it kind of makes sense. The Bitcoin ETF obviously wasn't just about the meme or excitement around the ETF. It was the flows. And so, of course, those flows had Bitcoin to dominate. And if you look at the next chart, Jay, I've got a chart of Bitcoin dominance, which continues to climb throughout the cycle. I think a lot of people were calling for the Bitcoin dominance chart to have topped out months and months and months ago. I even sort of thought that as well, but I've always had this trend line here that I have up on this chart here, which is the blue line. This is each cycle of Bitcoin dominance. And the one thing that I think a lot of people are missing in terms of the ETH Bitcoin ratio is every cycle, the same thing happens. Bitcoin dominates at the beginning of the cycle. And then at the final stage of the bull run, that is when ETH and then all the alts and everything goes absolutely nuts and it outperforms. And you can see it in this chart 12 months before the green line. The green line is the top of the cycle in each of the past 2 cycles, and then the expected one for this cycle. 12 months before the end of the cycle is when all of a sudden ETH and all the alts outperform Bitcoin. We're not at that stage yet. So I don't know why everyone is so like thinking this cycle is different. It's actually not even, it's completely on track. And it looks like if it does touch that trend line, I don't know if it will, but if it does, it's going to do it with about 12 months left of when the expected top of the cycle is. So I think and I just did a podcast with DeFi Dad earlier this week saying that we are about 50% of the way through the cycle, which I feel like is, I mean, my best guess anyway. And so the latter half of the cycle is generally when ETH and the alts outperform. And so I think we're tracking as usual. It was the same thing. Like last cycle, it wasn't until the end of 2020, early 2021, when ETH finally went nuts. And that was for like 8 months. That's it. Mm-hmm. Right. Other than that, Bitcoin was dominating the whole time. So it's like, I don't know. People need to just like look at the charts and not just assume. Like people always just think, oh, well, ETH outperformed Bitcoin last cycle, so it must have done it the whole cycle. And it's like, no, it didn't do it the whole cycle. It actually only did it for like 12 months.
When you say that you think we're 50% of the way through the cycle, do you mean in terms of price action or do you mean in terms of time?
That's a good question. I mean in terms of time. I actually don't mean either of those to be like specifically actually 50%. What I see is that there's usually a first stage to a bull market. And then you have this sort of like midpoint where things sort of get choppy and we don't move much. This happened in 2020 summer as well, before Michael Saylor bought. And then once we get through that, then things just take off and we go nuts. Now, usually that price action is much more, you have crazy pullbacks, et cetera. It tends to be a bit shorter than the first half. I call it halves. It's not actually halves in terms of time or in price. It's just like there's sort of 3 phases to the bull market. We're in the middle of it. So I think that's why we call it that. But good question.
Clarifying. Yeah. Well, just because when you say 50% through, I'm like, well, this started at the end of last year. If we're 50% through, we're going to be done by, Q3 of this year, which I know you don't believe that we're going to go. We're actually at the end of this episode, Kyle and I are going to talk about where are we in this cycle specifically and where do we think we're going to go. We got some great takes on that. So stick around for that. But let's go to the darling altcoin of this cycle.
Look at all the green on this chart.
This
God,
is
that's
crazy.
so nice. Solana currently sitting at 160. It had a nice pump yesterday after the CPI news, up 12.53% on the week, up 1% on the day. Solana is going to I think our title last week was called Bullish on Solana or something like that, which wasn't our plan. It just sort of happened in the middle of recording. And I'm just super, super bullish on Solana right now, which we're going to talk about why, because when we get into the meme coin stuff and we get into a lot of things going on, there's a reason why. There's lots of reasons why.
Let's go to some macro news. No shortage of macro news this week with CPI numbers coming out. Kai, what were the impact of these CPI numbers?
Yeah, so this is the big reason why we're mainly green in the assets we just talked about, except for ETH, obviously. But so CPI numbers came in yesterday, and it came in at 3.4%. And so that was the expectations. It's a little bit lower than it was last month, but not much. And so that is good. People thought it was going to be higher, or at least it has been going a little bit higher. So for it to go down is good news, which made people go, okay, maybe it's not so bad after all. But you still have a bunch of people saying, well, inflation's too high. I don't think they're going to get it controlled. And so rates won't go down and we're kind of screwed. This is what everyone's talking about. I actually just did a full pro report, which comes out on Saturday. So if you are a pro member, you're going to get this full breakdown of where we're at in the cycle and then also how macro is impacting all this. So I highly recommend you go pro and check that out. But basically, I'll give you a quick summary. Here's what the Fed needs to decide right now, okay? The Fed is trying to fight inflation. It doesn't want inflation to go higher, okay, which is currently at 3.4%. That's not that bad. Their goal is 2%. They're at 3.4. It used to be at like 8, 9, 10%, okay, like in 2021 when they were really worried. And so we're down to 3.4. It's not terrible. But the other thing is unemployment is rising. It's almost at a number that is historically always called a recession and has historically always been the point at which the Fed lowers rates. We are I think it's 1% or whatever away from that. So it's very, very, very close. They also have the issue, the Fed, of debt. There's trillions of dollars in debt. Interest rates are at 5.25%. And the amount of money they have to pay for this debt is just absolutely ludicrous. And it means people with credit cards are going broke. It means people with mortgages are going broke. And it means the government itself, who is the most in debt of anyone, is going broke. And so the Fed has to decide, okay, do we keep rates high to try to fight inflation? Or if we keep rates too high, then unemployment's going to go, through the roof. We're going to default on our debt and the whole economy is going to collapse. And so which one are they going to decide? They're obviously going to just go, all right, you know what? 3.4 inflation, not the end of the world. Let's not default on our debt and let's get everything else under control in the economy. At least that's my opinion. And so I think we are still on track for normal rates to go down. I think inflation, like 3.4 is not that big of a deal. And I think it just slowly continues to go down and that's fine. And I think that's what people are starting to sniff out, which is maybe why markets started to have a move, but who knows? Honestly, this could just be, we've had a bunch of these little, what's called like a bull trap where like it goes up, everyone gets all excited. We're back. And then it comes back down. It's probably that. I don't know that we're necessarily through the waters just yet. Just FYI.
So that's why you got to keep tuning in every week because we'll make sure you know what is going on because things happen so fast. Big news of this week. First top story, Roaring Kitty is back. That's right. Keith Gill, also known as Deep Fucking Value on Reddit, who is a key figure in the meme stock rally, which happened back in January of 2021. He was the one that called that GameStop was undervalued. It surged 400%. There's a Netflix documentary on it. If you haven't watched it, Kai, have you seen the Netflix documentary?
Of course.
It's great doc. Or I shouldn't say it's a documentary. It's actually a movie, a great movie. So what happened as a result of Roaring Kitty coming back? Well, first up, GameStop stock. That's a mouthful. GameStop stock was up 40% in pre-market trading. It's up 140% in the past 3 weeks, approaching a $10 billion market cap. This is GameStop, everybody, the company that sells video games out of retail stores. Also, AMC has gone up. AMC is similar to GameStop, sort of a dying company known as a meme stock because lots of people have been making memes about AMC. And as a result, retail investors love memes and memes as culture, and that can make things pump. So AMC has gone up as well. And one of the reasons AMC has gone up is because Roaring Kitty is basically almost like every hour has been posting shorts from movies, from famous movies on his Twitter. That's all he's been posting is these shorts from famous movies, as well as a couple of memes along the way, which has sent everything going crazy. What happened as a result of this? GameStop and AMC trading was halted on a lot of different major stock platforms. I know Robinhood halted and many others halted trading due to volatility, but that's why we crypto, because at the same time, meme coins that represent these stocks, GME, AMC, went up much more. GME was up 380%. AMC went up 1,400%. So these are the meme coins versus the meme stocks. Man, this is such a mouthful to try to explain these differences here. Am I explaining this well?
Yeah, you're doing good. Let me just explain a little bit for people. So first of all, the stock is down like 40% since that high that it hit was yesterday when this happened. So a bit of wildness in the meme stock world. We don't really know what's going on yet with that. Is this even his account? What's his real plan here? He's just been posting a bunch of shit. Either way, people go, they bought a bunch of this stock and it's coming back down, but we'll see what happens. On the other front of it, of course, crypto steps in and they say, hey, well, if there's meme stocks over here, let's recreate them over on chain. Now, these don't actually represent the shares of GME or AMC. They are just random tokens that were minted on Pump.Fun. They just have the same ticker name. They have no affiliation to them whatsoever. But of course, this is how attention works on chain. And when there's attention somewhere, then those, whatever the thing is going to pump like crazy. So these went up like nuts. Kitty, which was a new one that was also made, went up 20,000% in a matter of like, I think a couple hours after all this happened. So just a bit of mania in the meme world, which is kind of funny because rates are at 5.25%. Everyone said the GameStop thing was all because of low interest rates. And so like that could never happen in a high interest rate world. And we're in a high interest rate world. And yet memes continue to be the focal point of markets, which is pretty funny.
You mentioned that nobody really knows what Roaring Kitty is up to. And just to add a little bit more plot twist to this ongoing story, which I'm sure will have much more to come. If it is really Roaring Kitty, he's going to be a big player on crypto Twitter for the foreseeable future. But somebody is speculating that it's not Roaring Kitty and that he actually sold his Twitter account. Shlomes, who is a notorious degen and shit poster, shared a screenshot of a DM conversation with Roaring Kitty where he says, would you be interested in selling this Twitter account? And Roaring Kitty responded, if you're serious, then yes, I would potentially entertain an offer. Now, this was back in April. Look, this is a screenshot. Anybody could Photoshop this and make this. Yeah. Do we know this is real? No, we have no idea. But a lot of speculation speculation from all sides. What's going on here? Nobody knows. Do your own research and don't put all of your bags into GameStop, AMC, or the meme coin versions of these stocks. Okay, talking about meme coins. Meme coin mania is back. I don't know if it ever ended. It's just been continuing, even though none of us thought it would keep up this run. It just got up on the screen here. GME's meme coin is up 1,800% in the past 7 days. And you think 1,800% is a lot. Kai, let's look at the meme coins that are leading the way here over on, most of these are on Solana. Take us through a few of these meme coins. What's going on?
Yeah, Catter, I guess, is up 800 million% in the last 24 hours. Like what? Basically, that means I think it's gone from zero to a market cap of 405 million, which is actually pretty heavy. Most of these are just small little shit things that are like 2 million in market cap, not even in the millions. That one, I don't know what happened, but it really did well. There's one called Dumb Kitty, which is a play again on the Roaring Kitty thing, which is only a $39,000 market cap, but it's up 2,400. This is what's happening on chain right now, guys, is like, we'll get to this chart in a second, but Pump.Fun, which is this new protocol on Solana, which basically allows anyone to mint any token, but you don't have to provide liquidity. You just create the ticker and then the market decides if they want to buy it or not. So it starts from basically nothing, which is great because you can't rug anyone. Because usually if you provide liquidity, then you can just dump all your tokens on everyone. That can't happen here. So that's why there's so many of these new tokens starting, because it's just so easy to do it. There's no cost to do it. And so anything that happens in the world becomes a meme coin immediately. And now people can speculate on it. It's a weird and wacky new thing. But look at this. Jay's got a chart up on the screen here from Pump.Fun. They've had 21,985 new meme coins in the last 36 hours. This thing, and it's happening every day. That's 20 to 30,000 new tokens being launched every 36 hours on Solana right now. that was unheard of last cycle. That was like the max amount of tokens we had last cycle. Now we have it happening every single day. I don't think people really are realizing how crazy this is and what this means. But look, I know it's weird, wacky because it's all these meme coins, but like just the fact that that's even possible is pretty nuts.
Here's my question, Kai. Is all of this actually sustainable, real use cases of blockchain and crypto tech? Or is this just degens moving their money around from previously it was a lot in NFTs, then it's moved to SocialFi, which we're actually going to talk about in a second. And obviously it's memes since the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, right now, this is definitely just degens moving capital around. There's no debating that. However, the idea of tokenizing just culture and anything that's happening in culture, whether it be political stuff or it be things with Roaring Kitty or it be anything on Twitter, it's just getting started, right? Like we are only the crypto natives that are doing this. What happens when every industry comes on here? And so like every new actor and actress gets tokenized because they're launching a new movie and people want to speculate on it. What happens when every musician and every song they have and every whatever all gets tokenized and people wanted to speculate on shit? Like, it's like, this is going to touch every area and we're going to tokenize everything. And so like, look, I think we'll probably go up and then we'll come down at some point. But then I think this isn't just going to be meme coins. I think everything is going to get tokenized and it's just a way to represent value. Now, is that only degens that do it? I'm not sure, but there's something here for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the political debates between Trump and Biden this year, and what will watching the various Trump and the various Biden tokens during those debates will be hilarious.
Right.
Other news: Pump.Fun flipped Solana in 24-hour revenue this week. Flipped Solana, and remember, Pump.Fun is on Solana, so this is also bullish for Solana. Like, way to go, Solana.
So Pump.Fun has made $1.23 million in 24 hours. That is actually unbelievable. But I think one thing to note here is we want apps to flip in their networks. That is the whole point in this. And if that's not happening, then we failed as an industry. And so we should have tons of apps. That is the goal, is that we should have tons and tons of apps that are generating more revenue than Ethereum, that are generating more revenue than Solana, et cetera. That is when we actually know that we've succeeded because people are actually using the apps. So we want this. It's the first time I think, well, I guess Uniswap has been higher revenue than Solana before, but it's the first time a Solana app has flipped Solana, that's for sure.
Speaking about apps gaining traction, there's a lot happening in the SocialFi world, Kai, right now. What's your take on this? You had an interesting take, which I got up on screen from Ryan Connor, and you were discussing this with the team earlier.
Yeah, so Ryan put out this tweet, which I thought was quite interesting. He just said, blockchain gaming has taken off, but the games are Friendtech, meme coins, Pump.Fun, Fantasy Top, Drip House, etc. And he goes, it's not taking your skins into another game. That was skeuomorphic. And I thought this was an interesting take is, look, there are games on blockchains. It's just not the games we're all used to, right? It's not Call of Duty on the blockchain. It's not NHL 2000, whatever. Like, it is speculating on Twitter accounts and building a fantasy team of your favorite influencers, right? It is tokenizing politicians and betting on who's going to win on a daily basis based off of their interviews and things they're doing. It is joining group chats of influencers and speculating on which ones are going to give more value and thus more people are going to buy them. It is this like weird games that are created based off social networks, which is quite interesting. And it makes sense, right? Like over the last 10 years, what's the biggest new innovation that we've had in this world? Social media, right? We didn't have that in 2000 to 2010. That came about like 2010 afterwards. And it's become the biggest thing in our world over the last 10, 15 years. And now we have a way. And so like influencers have become somewhat celebrities in some regard, or at least have become just a very important part of many people's lives. And so now we have like these games to like speculate on them and to create like teams around them and like do more with them. It's kind of like Fantasy Top. You could think of sort of like fantasy football. You love watching sports. And so why not make some fun around the players on football, and you make your own team and you bet against other people, whatever. This is the same sort of idea, but with influencers. It makes sense to me. And it's weird. It's very cringe for a lot of people, but like there's a shit ton of people having fun. And again, I haven't really I've done Friendtech. I haven't played Fantasy Top much, but I see it and I get why people are involved in it. Now, a lot of it is just degens trying to make some money and flip things. So like, it is what it is. But like, I think he's right. This take is like, hey, blockchain gaming is here. It's just different than what we all thought. Now, that's not to say the other type of gaming is not going to be here. I think him saying it's skeuomorphic. Yeah, it's skeuomorphic, but it's probably still going to happen. Like I'm still bullish on the old Web3 gaming that we've all thought was coming. I think it's still coming. I just think there's new iterations, things that we never really thought. Just like when Facebook was invented, we never really thought that Angry Birds would be a game that existed that we'd play on our phones inside the social network. And like, as you do more things, it would update it on your feed so your friends would know. Like, who would have pictured that? And it was very cringe for a while. And it became one of the most successful games ever. So I don't know. Are we onto something here? Potentially.
Yeah, I think the thing everybody needs to remember here is that what is crypto blockchain at the heart of it is it creates a value layer on the internet. And what do you do when you create a value layer on the internet? You allow new forms of gambling and speculation. And what do gambling and speculation bring? Games. That's a form of gaming, basically. And so, yeah, I think this is the new form of gaming that we're going to see on chain. But as you said, and I just want to double tap on, it doesn't mean that traditional gaming, like mobile gaming, casual games, or gaming on your PS5 is not going to be brought on chain because, and the simple reason why of that is there's lots of black markets around the world where people are selling their skins and they're doing it in these totally janky black market ways. Well, why wouldn't you want to bring that on chain and enable somebody to sell a skin to a global market instantly, instant settlement in a secure way? Well, of course that will happen. It's just going to take a lot longer. I want to bring up an interesting take here on comparing Friendtech to Fantasy Top. Kai, we've seen an incredible rise in Fantasy Top over the past month, basically, since they launched. Not even a month. I think it's been like 2 weeks. They launched at the beginning of May. Friendtech also had a similar hype, crazy rise, but then had a fall that also, as everybody knows now. And they rose during the bear market. They launched in August of last year and rose for basically like a few months and then fell off a cliff. Friendtech obviously is trying to make a comeback right now with their V2. Do you think that Fantasy Top is another Friendtech that's going to have a rise and a fall here? Or do you think they've got something more sustainable?
So I do. Ultimately, yes. So there's a couple of points here, actually. So Fantasy Top, I think, is actually a bit more fun than something like Friendtech. Friendtech didn't have the ability to scale. We were flagging that from the very beginning. After like 20 people held your keys or whatever, it got super expensive for anyone to buy. So it was so obvious that that wasn't going to be a scalable product. They've made some changes. So does it work after that? Like maybe, I don't know. Fantasy Top definitely has more scalability to it. It's a bit more fun, but I still think it's just the reason why it's getting so much hype right now is because if you use Fantasy Top, you can win gold distributions for the Blast airdrop. So I think that's where most of this is coming from. So you always got to think about where the incentives are. Sure, Fantasy Top might be a bit more fun, but like it's not that great. And I don't think it's this thing that's going to make it into like become mainstream. Like I don't think it's the next Angry Birds or whatever. I just want to be clear on that. I think it is a building block and a stepping stone in the right direction. But I don't believe that this is going to be the next big thing. I could be wrong. Oftentimes with new innovations, they're very cringe. People used to think Instagram was really, really weird when it first launched. And now, I mean, it's just so normal. TikTok, everyone thought was super cringe. Now it's become like the biggest app in the world. So like, we always think new things are cringe. But that said, I think most of the activity that's happening in Fantasy Top right now is just completely because of Blast. Now, Blast just announced that they're launching their airdrop on June 26th, I believe the date is, which means they've extended this a little bit further. It's supposed to come in May. So now there's another month of speculation that can happen on Fantasy Top. So I think this is really good for Fantasy Top. But I think once that Blast airdrop is done, and they'll probably launch another season, so maybe this continues further. But I think this is a quick, few weeks to a month or so thing that people play, and then they move on to the next thing.
Speaking of Blast, Blast is an L2 built on ETH. Well, you know what's happening across the ETH ecosystem with L2s? All-time highs in weekly active addresses. So even though we talked about at the beginning of the show, ETH price maybe not doing so great, but active address is doing really well. What's going on here, Kai?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I think are still fading ETH, and I understand why. It's Bitcoin is in the limelight because it's got the ETF, and so that's quite obvious. And then Solana's kind of that new it thing. A bunch of the meme coins are on there, and meme coins have done well. So, it makes sense that Solana would be a part of that. And also Solana was just so undervalued going into this bull market that it was obvious that it was going to come back. We had put that call out to pro members early last year as well. And so ETH sort of sits in the middle. And I think the thing is ETH had this narrative of fees. It was deflationary and had all these fees. And so like if ETH is more deflationary, then that's super bullish. And so that was where ETH's like ETH did quite well during the bear market versus Bitcoin. It really held very strong, and no other token has ever done that in the bear market. And so ETH had a very bullish bear market. Then what happened is, well, we know we need to scale. And so we were scaling through L2s. And so like this was kind of obvious to people that are in the system here. But basically, now that we've scaled, right, with EIP 4844, which we covered a bunch, blob space, we've called it, that has scaled L2s. And it has allowed for L2s to be very, very cheap. And so L2s are succeeding. Base is crushing it. Arbitrum, Optimism, all these L2s are doing really, really well. They've got a bunch of apps. They've got a bunch of users there. It's at all-time highs. So cool. But the problem is now they're almost giving no fees back to Ethereum. And so what it looks like to people who don't really think too deep into this is like ETH is failing, right? ETH now is not a deflationary asset. Over the last few weeks, it has actually been inflationary still. So it's not burning enough ETH to remain deflationary. And so people are like, okay, well, what's happening then? The L2s are stealing all the fees, and there's just no demand for ETH anymore. And I think that is a bit short-sighted. I think what's really happening here is like tech always sort of works this way. If we think about how the internet worked, we had the internet, it was in dial-up. If those that are listening are too young and they don't know what dial-up is, it's where you actually had to connect your internet into your phone provider, and like you couldn't use your phone when you were using your internet. It was very slow. It took tens of seconds to load a web page at least. It took days to download a song, which is just wild to think of. But anyway.
Poll question for the week. Who here remembers dial-up? Who has used dial-up? Which one of our listeners have used dial-up? I want to know if you use.
Do you know what this sound is? And so basically what happened with this was we built the internet. It wasn't very good. It wasn't very scalable, but there wasn't a lot of people using it. So it didn't actually matter. Then all of a sudden, like Napster launched and people started downloading music, and we're like, okay, this thing is super slow. It doesn't really work. And so they built cable, right? The broadband moment for the internet. And so all of a sudden, they had all this cable, all this broadband, but there wasn't enough users. It wasn't getting used. And then it took a little bit of time and new apps were built like YouTube, et cetera. Like, oh, we can have video streaming now and it can be immediate because we have broadband moment, right? That what couldn't happen before on the dial-up moment. All of a sudden, all these new apps came. And then the internet became kind of slow again. We're like, fuck, the internet's not fast enough for what we need for these new apps, new innovations. So then we had fiber optics, right? And it's like the supply and demand of the technology just continues to go back and forth. That's what's happening right now with Ethereum. Is we built Ethereum, it worked really well years ago, and then all of a sudden we had all this demand, these new apps, and then we're like, okay, shit, now we don't have enough supply of block space. So then we created L2s, and we created blob space, and all of a sudden, boom, now we have all this supply of block space that's really, really cheap. There's not enough demand for it, but that will come, right? We just need to innovate. We need these new apps. Coinbase is doing a good job on this with Base, and so more and more apps will come, more and more users will come, and that will fill up the blob space again, and ETH will eventually go deflationary. But instead, it will be deflationary when it's facilitating billions of transactions instead of before it was deflationary at just millions of transactions. So we just need to wait for the demand to catch up. And so I think the scaling solution and what Ethereum is doing all makes sense. It's all good. People are just kind of a bit short-sighted there. But the idea of ETH being deflationary yet still allowing for billions of transactions to be executed through layer 2s still exists. We're just in that like middle period where the demand needs to catch up. So it'll happen. Just takes time.
Thanks for the internet history lesson there, Kai, and tying that all into the future of the on-chain world.
I was a Napster maxi back in the day. I love Napster. Download some Nelly and Tupac.
Sean Parker, shout out. What's up, my man? Hope you're doing all right. Let's go to the next big story, sticking within the Ethereum ecosystem, which is Lens. Lens has launched an L2, their own L2 called Lens Network, and they've done it on top of the ZK Sync stack. A couple of takes here. First off, Lens was previously on Polygon. They could have decided to use Polygon's CDK, their tech stack, and built on the AG layer, but they decided to switch over to ZK Sync. They believe in ZK clearly, but they moved from one ZK provider to another. And this kind of shows, I wonder if we're going to see, is ZK Sync the next big powerhouse that's going to build an ecosystem the same way that Optimism is building the superchain and Arbitrum is building Arbitrum Orbit, Polygon obviously building AG layer. What do you think is happening here, Kai?
Yeah, so actually, before I get into that, I mean, the one interesting thing that brings up here is social continues to be the hot topics. We just talked about SocialFi and how the people are gaming that. Then you've got Lens Network, which is a new social media platform. I mean, we didn't talk about Farcash today, but that continues to be sort of a hot topic in the space as well. So it's interesting that social media just continues to be decentralized social or social fi, whatever you want to call it, continues to be the like push forward for these apps, consumer-based apps. I don't think people had on their radar last cycle that it was going to be social apps, but it makes complete sense, right? What's been the biggest thing over the last 10 years and 15 years. So that's interesting, number one. Lens has been done pretty well. I think, I don't know if you have the numbers, Jay, but it's like, what, 100,000 or so active users, maybe monthly?
Yeah, let me take a look at these numbers here. Monthly new profiles has gotten as high as 80,000 back at the beginning of the year, down around 20,000 per month right now. Active users got as high as 60,000. So look, we don't talk a ton about Lens. Farcaster definitely gets more attention than Lens does. It's happening over there. There's definitely activity.
They've got some cool things. Either way, to go back to your question there around, the super chains or whatever you want to call these things, ZK Sync is a little bit late to the party, right? I mean, Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon really were the three kind of main ones. ZK Sync has been later just to like go live in terms of their own chain, but they obviously have some really, really good technology, pretty bullish on what ZK Sync is doing. And I think now they're at a point where they can start to get their business development team to start finding more people to launch using their tech stack. I do think they'll become a big player in the space. The one interesting take from all this is Polygon continues to see people leave Polygon. They were the darling of last cycle. If you guys weren't here last cycle, Polygon, or the Matic token anyway, went from, it was one of the best tokens of the entire cycle. It was like Matic, BNB, and Solana were like the three big ones. And the one thing, Polygon made so much money and they spent so much money bringing in all the big brands, launching, getting all the big apps. Polygon was like the it thing in 2021, I guess. They had Starbucks and Nike and like, I don't even know.
Reddit and Disney and Meta.
Right. Yeah. And then Meta backtracked and left. And then Starbucks has, well, we don't really know what they're doing, but it seems they've left as well. It's like a lot of the big brands, which by the way, Polygon paid these brands to build on them. They didn't just come and do it because Starbucks like, oh, I want to do this. It was no, I'll test this because I'm getting paid millions of dollars by Polygon to do it. So they spent a lot of money. Most of those didn't work out, which is like fairly, I guess, normal, right? Startups fail, a lot of them. So like, it kind of makes sense. But there was a lot of apps in that were crypto native that were also on Polygon that are beginning to move off. Lens is one of them. So yeah, I don't know what's going on over on at Polygon. I mean, they have a big team. They're building a lot of things. Their tech is mainly good. I just, people don't tend to want to stick around on Polygon. So it's a bit bearish for Polygon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that like what's interesting to me is that Polygon has been so good at BD from a enterprise standpoint, but has struggled. And sure, those enterprises have come and left. It doesn't mean they're not going to come back, but that's unfortunate. You spent so much money to get them and then they left. Yeah. But they've struggled to get the current crypto native market. The current crypto native market is not bullish on Polygon the way that they're bullish on other L2s.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been saying for a while, I'm not super bullish. Polygon. At some point, Polygon probably gets, like, it hasn't had a move, like Matic or whatever, hasn't really moved much this cycle. So like at some point it'll have its moment, but yeah, it's been a struggle so far for them. I think they do have one of the exchanges. Is it Kraken that's launching an L2 with Polygon, or is it OKX? One of them is, but I can't remember.
I think you're right. I think it might be OKX. I think it might be OKX. All right, let's go to In Case You Missed It, our segment where we keep you quickly up to date on the major things that happened this past week. First of all, in case you missed it, El Salvador has mined over 400 Bitcoin since 2021 using power from a volcano in El Salvador.
This is wild to think about. It's so smart. Like El Salvador, so they make Bitcoin legal tender. They buy a bunch of Bitcoin and then they announce they're going to buy Bitcoin every day, 1 Bitcoin per day, every single day since I don't know how long it's been now. And then they also set up a freaking miner that is using the geothermal power from their volcanoes to mine Bitcoin. 474 Bitcoin. That is like $300 and something million. That is not a small amount for a small country. So very, very, very impressive what they are doing with their Bitcoin strategy. They also have launched a Bitcoin bond. It's like a nation state bond, but it's like backed by Bitcoin. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but they're doing some really, really cool stuff. And I think other countries need to pay attention because that's just wild.
Bullish on El Salvador. Next up, in case you missed it, Vanguard, one of the largest funds in the world, over, I think, about 10 trillion under management. 7 trillion. Okay. Wow. Very accurate. Thank you for that update. Vanguard has appointed a new CEO. And if you guys remember, we talked about the old CEO at Vanguard a few months ago on the show. Why? Because he was not a fan of Bitcoin. And Vanguard easily could have launched a Bitcoin ETF along with everybody else, and they decided not to, which was a pretty big statement, being so anti-Bitcoin when so many other large funds were getting in on the party.
Well, it
And
turned out to be
now,
pretty bad considering how good the Bitcoin ETFs worked, right? One of the most successful launches ever in ETFs. So Vanguard looks kind of stupid.
right. And they don't want to look stupid anymore. So what did they do? They have appointed a new CEO who is Bitcoin friendly. Not only is he Bitcoin friendly, he was actually the lead at BlackRock on their Bitcoin ETF. So Vanguard very likely getting into the BTC ETF mix.
To be clear,
coming
though,
up.
he did say they are still not launching a Bitcoin ETF yesterday, but I feel like he kind of has to say that. He can't just come in and be like, all right, we're changing this thing like right away. Like there was a bunch of customers and stuff Vanguard didn't want it. So he's got to like play on that side of the table first. And then I think he'll switch at some point, but let's see.
In case you missed it, Tornado Cash lead developer Alexei Pertsev was found guilty and has been sentenced to 64 months in prison by a Dutch court. This is a sad one, Kai. Hate to see this.
Sucks.
Look, this developer developed Tornado Cash as a open source app to allow people to move money in a private way. He did not intend to develop an app for nefarious purposes or to support any form of terrorism or money laundering. That was not his purpose. But because he developed this platform which allowed this money laundering to happen, the Dutch court has found him guilty and he is going to prison for quite a while. He's been in prison since August of 2022. So he's already served quite a bit of this sentence. But you got to remember, Vitalik used Tornado Cash to send money to Ukraine to support their war efforts when that war first started. So it's not like Tornado Cash was only used for money laundering. It was used for a lot of good purposes too. Yeah, just hate to see it. He has since appealed this conviction. No surprise.
Which he should be. I mean, think about how many technologies are used to aid a bunch of bad things. Social media is used every day for terrorism. You know, we're going to ban social media now. The internet is used every single day for people to communicate about terrorism and about money laundering and about everything that happens. Everyone uses their phones to do everything in the world. We're going to ban phones and the internet now? No, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, wake up, people.
I like it when you get heated like that, Kai. Bring more of the heat, you know? Bring the spice. That's what we like. The spicy milk. That sounds gross. I don't know what spicy milk is.
What are you talking about?
That would be awful. That would be awful. Okay, in case you missed it, Ripple's CEO and Tether's CEO got into a bit of a boxing match online this week. First off, it started when Brad Glaringhouse, who's the CEO of Ripple, went on a podcast and basically said that the U.S. I'll give you an exact quote. He said, Tether is an interesting one. The U.S. government is going after them. That is clear to me. And a lot of people came out and said, oh, Ripple CEO is against Tether and is really trying to put a spotlight on them. Let's remember right now, Ripple is in the process of launching their own stablecoin. So people were like, okay, this is just a CEO trying to take down one of his competitors in a pre-launch marketing effort. And what do you think the Tether CEO did? He came out with a long Twitter post saying that an uninformed CEO, didn't even name him, an uninformed CEO has basically been putting out negative and misinformation about us. And we are fully compliant, fully working with regulators. And then I'm really hoping this would go towards, more heat, like put them in the ring, like get these guys against each other. But that ended up kind of being the end, because then the CEO of Ripple came back and said that, kind of backtracked on his comments and said that Tether is very important and he believes in them. So all for nothing. All right, let's go to agree, disagree. We got some tweets that were put in our Discord this week from our community, and a lot around where we're at in the current cycle. Kai, I'm going to read a few here rather than our typical where I read one at a time. Let me read a few about where we're at in cycle, and then I'll let you jump in. First up, 0xJPEG says, I think it's entirely possible and arguably likely that crypto has topped for this cycle. Next, Mr. Bibbles says, why is everyone thinking we have 8 to 12 month bull run, then back to bear? it's far more likely we have a slower, more sustainable multi-year bull market with 2 to 3 month consolidation periods like we're seeing now than some blow off the top bull run with a 2-year bear again. It's a real asset class now with institutional support. Assume it's going to repeat the same blow off the top as retail driven markets of the past is short-sighted, in my opinion. This run is driven by institutional money. Kai, what do you think? Where are we at?
I think the first one of that we've already topped out is just wildly wrong. I'll just say that. I think there's just no way. Anyone who thinks that just is not paying attention to macro and global liquidity, which is what moves these cycles. So I think that's just so far off. Although I know a lot of people are saying this. This is again why I have this pro report coming out on Saturday, which I almost titled, "Is this the top of the crypto cycle?" I think we ended up changing it, but it was something around that. But I don't think that's the case at all. In terms of the second one of thinks it's actually going to be a bit longer, I actually tend to sort of agree with this one. He's basically saying, okay, well, institutions are here, so we're not going to have this like crazy mayhem like we've had previously. It'll be a slower, steadier grind upwards. I don't think that that's the case either, because even institution money is still pretty damn stupid, and they still FOMO. And not to mention, retail will come into this at some point too, and that's really stupid money, and so they're going to FOMO. And so FOMO is going to happen no matter what. It's just how every cycle works. I think, as I said in the beginning, I think we're about halfway through. I think we haven't had the crazy moment yet, and I think that's still to come. Though I lean to this Mr. Bibbles guy, the second part, because I do think his point of like it's a real asset class now, which what I take from this is more less about the institutional support, but it's more that there's actual real use cases, and there's people coming into the space because they like just need to use this stuff, whether it be stable coins or different apps or like just different on-chain stuff like the BTC from BlackRock. Like there's a lot of things you can now do on chain that just weren't possible before. And I think every time that more use cases come on chain, it sort of like raises the bottom of where we can be in terms of prices for at least, this is not true of all crypto assets. This is true of like Bitcoin. This is true of probably ETH and Solana, et cetera, because those are the ones actually getting used. And so I do think we have less volatility than previously, but I don't think that this is like going to be some nice controlled cycle where it still goes 4 years, but it's like in this very nice way because institutions are here. Like if anything, they're going to try and make this thing a bit crazier, and institutions foaming against other institutions is going to create some craziness. We got to remember these assets, as much as this is a real asset class because Bitcoin has an ETF, it's still freaking tiny. And so if Ethereum ETF gets approved, yeah, institutions are going to buy that thing, but the thing is only worth 400 billion, which means as institutions start to FOMO in this ETF, this thing is going to get crazy and move way faster than we've ever realized. It's not like an approval for an ETF of an asset that's 10, trillion or something. The thing is 400 billion. I think it's going to be very similar to other cycles, to be completely honest. I think we're still tracking some point late next year, but I just don't think we have as bad as a bear market. In certain assets, I think every other asset, 99% of them get completely wrecked, just like they have in every other cycle. I just want to keep making that clear. If you're holding some Ibu, Shinu, whatever, or some shitty little kitty token or whatever, you will get wrecked in the bear market 100%. You just might not have as aggressive a bear market for Bitcoin and maybe ETH and Solana.
I love this point of the bull cycle because this is the point of the bull cycle when you're going to see tweets like this every single day. And everybody is going to have a hot take on where we're at in the cycle, some hot take on what the price is going to go to. Here's the thing you got to remember. Nobody fucking knows. These are 100%. All thoughts. These are all just people trying to get a lot of attention. Look, that tweet about saying that we're at the top of the cycle, I wonder if Jay even believes that, or if he's just, that's a great tweet to get a lot of attention and cause a lot of virality on Twitter. So I think you got to remember, if you're an influencer, in order to get attention, you need to take a stance on either side, and you can't take a middle stance. So expect to see a lot of this, but don't trust it all.
Where are we in the cycle is the right question to be asking. You do want to be looking at the numbers and trying to figure this out. I just don't think now is the moment where it really matters. It's the next price move up. Now we're in waters where we're really in price discovery. That is when we're questioning. We're not in price discovery. And only one asset has really beat all-time highs, and it's actually below it right now. So like, no, we're not in price discovery. It's pretty obvious we're not at the top. Unless crypto is dead, then okay, fine. Then why are we even talking about this? Just get out. But if we all think crypto is here to stay, you got to wait until we're in price discovery before you start worrying about, are we at the top? And usually it's going to take a bunch more pullbacks and aggressive pumps before we get to that point.
Okay, next up, We got to take from cred. I'm just going to read a part of this tweet where he's talking about all this controversy about the disagreement of where we are in the cycle. Are we at the top? Are we just beginning? Are we in the middle? And he says, one of the reasons why there's so much difference in a disagreement is that the conventional risk curve trade of BTC to ETH to large caps to mid caps to shitters has been unprofitable. Barbell portfolio of BTC plus memes has dominated.
Yeah, this take is very common. And it's like people are not looking at charts from back in previous cycles because the Bitcoin into ETH, into large caps, into mid caps, into shitters happened at the end of 2020. And then at the end of 2020 is when people moved into ETH, and then people moved into large caps, and we had altcoin season, and then people moved into NFTs. And that was during 2021 onwards until we topped out November 2021. We're not there yet. We're just not there. And in terms of this barbell strategy, what worked in 2020 at the early stage of the bull market was Bitcoin and DeFi, because that was when yield farming was first introduced, and you had DeFi summer, and DeFi was nuts. That's where you had these thousands and thousands of percent gains. And so, yeah, the barbell strategy back then was, what was the new use case? Okay, DeFi. And then what was the main one that drives markets? Bitcoin. And then at the end, once we hit that 50% through the cycle, and then we have that last year left, that's when we did the ETH and the large caps and the mid caps, et cetera. We're still not at that point yet. And so again, you have Bitcoin, which leads the way because it's about global liquidity and it's the main one. So it's driving it. And then what was the barbell strategy? It's not DeFi this time because, well, that was invented 4 years ago. Who cares about that? It was meme coins, right? Meme coins on Solana where it's cost nothing to trade. That was the new big invention, is tokenization of everything. And so, yeah, you buy the new innovation and the big thing. But at some point in this cycle, I still believe we'll have the same thing that happened in the last two cycles, which is we'll move into ETH, into large caps. I don't think we've really had alt season just yet. I think that we had this meme coin season. And yes, some alts did well, TIA, but that was because a bunch of people want to stake to get airdrops. We had I don't know, some of the other big ones, but it's been kind of small and quiet. I think we still have that moment. I think we're not there yet in the cycle. If you look at timing, we're not at the 2021 period yet. That's Q3, Q4 of this year and onwards. So I don't know why everyone's missing that. It took me a bit, I think, to grasp that as well. But I think it's just because I keep seeing these tweets. So I was like, yeah, they're right. And then I was like, wait a minute, they're not actually right at all. So I don't know. That's my take.
Great take. Bull Leonidas had a great post. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the meme. I'll read it out to you. He's got a bear and a bull. And the bear says, it might be over. And the bear owns BTC, Sol, and hit big on Sol meme coins. And then the bull says, we are so early. The bull owns ETH and is waiting for NFTs to come back.
I really like this. And this actually basically goes further about what I was just saying, which is, again, this happened last cycle. If you were in DeFi in 2020, which most people were not, but if you were, you made so much money in the summer of 2020 before Bitcoin was above 10,000. Bitcoin was still, Michael Saylor hadn't bought yet. Bitcoin was still 50% from its all-time high. And yet DeFi summer was going off and people were making thousands of X's. And so those people were like, okay, we're pretty far into the cycle. This is getting a bit crazy, right? But most people who weren't in DeFi, which was a lot of people at that point, they were like, nothing's happened. I don't even know what crypto is yet, right? Retail's not here, et cetera. Except it's just, again, there's so many people that are in crypto. We have more crypto natives this time. And so we're sitting here playing around with these dumb fantasy tops and meme coins and whatever, thinking this has been a crazy cycle. And yet you go talk to anyone in the real world and they're like, what's crypto? I thought the thing died in 2021, right? And so if you did well, Bitcoin, so that's great, but it's still early, but those people are thinking it's late. And then, yeah, if you've been holding ETH, unfortunately, which is a big crowd of people, they are like, yeah, nothing's moving, nothing's happened, which sucks for those people. I think they'll still have their moment. I don't know about the waiting for NFTs to come back. That one is still the one that I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. But I think ETH, L2s, restaking, I think that narrative's all to play still. Let's see. That's just my guess.
It's all a matter of perspective. And that's exactly what you get caught up in as you go through these cycles, is you only know your own perspective. And as a result of Twitter's algorithm and the algorithms of all these major social media platforms, we all live in echo chambers where all we hear is our own perspective repeated to us. And it causes us to miss what others are seeing and what others believe is going to happen.
That's a great point. And actually, to add to that, the other problem is that crypto is very tribalism, right? There are people who only watch the Solana ecosystem and only watch the Ethereum ecosystem and only watch the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so the problem is, it's weird that people do that. They don't look like, if you like crypto, just like crypto. I don't know why you got to go in one ecosystem. It doesn't really make any sense. But that is the problem, is that people get their news or people tweet out, like there are people bull posting ETH that just like they've never even looked at Solana still. And I'm just like, what are you guys tweeting about right now? Like, do you even, they're like, ETH is the only smart contract platform. And it's the only thing that I'm just like, what? Are you not paying attention to what's happening? Like, and I'm like, wow, they're lost in their world. And then there's people in Solana that are like, oh, ETH is shit and this and that. And Bitcoiners don't even know that ETH and Solana are even like building apps. They think it's still just like whatever it was before. Like, it's so weird that people are in this, but that's the problem is they're in their own lane. They think their own thing because they don't see the rest of it. And so their timelines and their cycle is just so different than someone else's. So you need to make sure you're getting your news from people who are looking at all the ecosystems and aren't stuck in one lane because they're just missing a lot. And it can lead you in very wrong directions, I would say.
Last one of the week. QW says about 10,000 tokens are launched daily on Pump.Fun. That's about one token every 10 seconds. The term meme coin has a silly connotation and leads to poor conclusions. The big unlock of crypto is and always has been enabling anyone to tokenize anything.
We hit this like in the middle of the show, which is, I mean, I completely agree. It's like we're just going to tokenize. We're tokenizing dollars. We're tokenizing bonds and treasuries. We are tokenizing real estate. We are tokenizing memes. We are tokenizing companies. We are tokenizing freaking everything. And what comes from that is anyone's guess at this point. We all have our ideas of, oh, it could be this type of game or this type of DeFi app or this whatever. I think the things that are really going to take off, we don't have a damn clue. And no one's even thought of, and it hasn't. Maybe someone's making it right now in their basement. I have no idea. But it's important to pay attention to these things like meme coins and Fantasy Top because like there's something there. I don't think it's those things. I don't think Kitty token is going to be the next big thing or Fantasy Top or Friendtech. But there's things coming from that are going to be used in the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And eventually the big thing will exist. Like Facebook was not the first social media app. There was many apps before it. Facebook just combined a lot of different things and then also lucked out that the phone launched around the same time. And so like it made sense and it worked out that way. But there was 50 to 100 social apps that came before it. And many of them built off one another. And then finally it was like, okay, everything all worked together in one and boom, it took off. That's what's going to happen in crypto, but it might be tomorrow and it might be 5 years from now. I don't know.
Well, the thing you have to remember is that it's very easy to create a meme coin, to tokenize culture. It's the easiest thing to do right now, to tokenize a meme. Everyone loves cats. Cats are huge on the internet. No debate there.
I don't love cats.
You don't love cats? Really?
No, cats are terrible.
Like you dislike cats?
Okay, I don't dislike cats. Okay, that's a good point. I don't love cats.
I was really trying to get you to say you dislike cats so the whole internet of cat lovers could come after you. But it's easy to tokenize these things is my point. What is much harder to tokenize is all the other assets that exist in various forms from
in the real world.
Carbon credit assets that are used in very important ways to manage climate change, to IP that is used to manage pharmaceuticals and all the science IP that exists. Like all these things they're very difficult to tokenize, but you got to believe that they're going to become tokenized. And when they do, we're going to the moon. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's all happening. Kai, that's a wrap on today's show. As always, thanks for drinking your milk. Thanks for putting some milk out for your cat too. I'm kidding. I know you don't have a cat. And thanks everybody for listening. And we appreciate you all. We hope you all had a great week. Hope you have a great weekend coming up. Make sure you check out this weekend's pro report. Because as Kai said, the question that is on everyone's mind right now is where are we at in this cycle? Are we at the top? Are we in the middle? Is it just the beginning? Well, we're going to give you a deep dive with all the charts and all the analysis you need to understand where we believe we are at so that you have confidence in your investments. Until next week, keep drinking your milk, whether it's soy, almond, or oat. We love it all. Enjoy. Have a great weekend, y'all. Thank you for listening to Milk Road Radio, the easiest path to get smarter about crypto. If you like this episode, share it and hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, then we'll leave a link to Milk Road Pro as well, your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto is risky, so you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and we'll see you in the next one.